everything that I demonized outside of myself, all the negativity, that person's bad, this person's this, that person's that, all the way down to that person has demons. There's demons here, demons exist. I had to realize that inside of myself. And I saw that it all came from within me, right? Not that I made it up, right? But that it did exist, but it existed within me. Hello, and welcome back. Thanks so much for joining me if it's your first time. This is like my third time recording this video. There's just things that I really need to say in a specific order. But essentially this is the story of how I sort of deconstructed from sort of evangelical fundamentalism, and more than that, how I found the truth, my truth, which isn't just my truth, I'll say that. But without any further gilding the lily, let's just get right into the story. And to really fully understand this story, we've got to go back. It all started when I was born. Now, trust me, I'll go through and I'll abridge this for you. But to really understand, we do have to go back that far because there's a lot that's happened in my life. For instance, when I was born on the East Coast. I was born in Atlanta. And about a year after I was born, my father went to prison. He was put away for 14 years. Pretty long time. So I wasn't going to see him for a long time. And I've talked to him and stuff and visited him since and stuff like that, but that's a story for another time. So basically I was left with my mother, and she didn't really know what to do, what else to do, so she went over to the East Coast where her father lived, Washington State. And we stayed there for probably about 3-ish years. My grandfather was a little bit eccentric and just extra, so I'm not exactly sure what happened, but she decided to move to Chicago where her mother lived. So in Chicago, I spent about 4 or 5 years there, about a third of my childhood. And there, it was good for a time, I'll say. I was there, my mom got kicked out of the house because she couldn't stay away from substances, alcohol and drugs and stuff like this. She was an alcoholic. And so she was asked to leave, and I stayed there. So I visited her every now and again. I also visited my dad's sister, who she was great. A lot of the love that I got in my earlier part of my childhood came from her. But to make a long story short, my mom got mostly better, and not all the way. She realized that to get all the way, she needed to go somewhere else. And so she packed her bags, I packed mine, and I left with her. I left Chicago, and we moved in with her sister. We moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma, so that she could get on her own 2 feet and start a life. And if you don't know anything about Tulsa, Oklahoma, it is pretty much smack dab in the middle of the Bible Belt. It's like the reddest of red states that you can get, basically. So this is where, enter my evangelical fundamental growings up came in. Now, I was going to church and stuff like that with my grandparents, but nothing like this. So when we moved there, the reason that my aunt moved there was because there was a church there she really wanted to go to. It was also a school. And so I ended up going to the school. It's a mega church. If you know, you know. I'm not going to say anything, though. I'm not gonna throw them out there. But I ended up going to the school, and everything seemed to be going fine. My aunt had one rule for my mom, and that was to not get into any substances. But she could not help herself. So eventually, after a period of time, she was caught having alcohol in her room, and she was asked to leave. And again, I stayed, right? There was a whole process with that. I ended up, being legally, technically, my aunt's son, and I grew up with them. I grew up with their 2 kids as well, so my cousins ended up essentially kind of becoming like my brothers. And I went to this school, and in this school, you learn about the Bible every day, right? You get into middle school and high school, you have Bible class every day. You have chapel, which is essentially like a little church service every two times a week. And then as you get older, like in my senior year, I took essentially like what's a parallel to an ethics class, and then I also took apologetics. So a lot of learning about theology, God, and the Bible there, and that is where I sort of learned what my worldview is and the structure of reality and what everything meant, right? So, I graduate, and after I graduate, I go to this very near private university called Oral Roberts University. And I went there for a while. I studied music and stuff like that. But my second semester that I was there, the beginning of my second semester, school had just started again. I remember I was in my room at my aunt's house. And it's nighttime and everyone's asleep. But I'm not, because I stay up late and I'm doing stuff and all that. I get this call from my mom. And I look at the phone and it says her name there. I'm like, this is odd. She never really calls, you know. And so I answer the phone, I say hello, and it's not her. It's a man. And it's not a man's voice that I recognize either. She had a roommate, his name, I forget. I know his name, but I won't say it. It wasn't his voice, and they're asking, is your aunt there? They say her name is such and such here. And then I said, yeah, hold on a second. I think this must be important, so I better go wake them up. So I went and woke them up and said, someone's asking for you. And I leave the room thinking, oh no, what is this going to be about? Because I skipped this, but my mother had already been in the hospital for, she was in a coma for like a week or so. And I visited her, and she was in a coma for about a week. And because she was going through alcohol withdrawals and she drank, Drano to kind of, because if you don't know anything about the alcohol withdrawal, it literally can put you in a state of psychosis and you start going crazy. You cannot just cold turkey when you're that hard into the addiction of alcohol. So she drank Drano, and that put her in a coma for a really long time. Her body was just all messed up. And I was there when she woke up, and actually my dad was there as well because he was out. And that was the only time that we had all ever been together as a family. The only time. But moving back, fast forwarding to where we were at, my aunt gets off the phone and I'm in my room, and she opens the door and she just looks at me with that look in her eyes. And I knew that my mom had died. And that was a very pivotal point in my life. I want to move on from that, but I just need to state that that was a very pivotal point in my life because it got me asking questions. First and foremost, how is it that someone can be lukewarm, right? Say the words, I believe in Jesus, but not do the stuff, not love people, not, get their ish together, all this stuff, and go to heaven, right? But then how does someone over here who never said the words, they're a Buddhist or Hindu or whatever, they live a life according to, the lines of what Jesus was saying we should all be doing, right? And then they go burn forever. How does this make sense, right? It's these crises that begin to have us ask questions that, lead to interesting answers. So that semester, needless to say, was my last semester at that private university. I barely finished up, and I ended up taking the summer, to kind of recuperate, and then I went back, and I didn't go back to that university. I went to another public college, and I needed that. I needed to be away from, the influence of sort of, the church and these ideologies and stuff like that. I didn't know it. Something inside of me did, though. And here's where I got into my first serious relationship, and she was a staunch atheist. At this time of my life, I was more of an agnostic than anything, but she saw who I was, and I told her that I was a Christian and stuff like this, and she put me in that box, not allowing me to step into the agnosticism. It's not her fault or anything like that, but she just saw this, and she would always attack and ask, how can you believe this and this and this and stuff like that. And, I would just give these pre-typed answers basically to what I had learned in apologetics and all this stuff. But I had roommates that I was living with at this time from high school. And I always remember one of my roommates asked me if I had want to smoke that night. It was the first time I'd ever smoked. And I remember smoking, and then she asked me, Do you guys really believe all that stuff that they peddled to us at that private Christian school that we went to? And I just remember looking down and actually thinking about it for a really long time, unable to say yes or absolutely no. I looked back up and I saw the look in her eyes. She was like, what is this person going to say? Because I actually took the time to think about it. And I feel like she was like, oh no, no one's ever asked you that question. You've never thought about that before. I hope I didn't just undo your whole world. But as I was looking at her, I just said, I don't know. I just don't know. I can't say. And this was sort of the beginning of the journey for me to really figure things out, admitting to myself that I'm not quite sure. So I had one foot sort of like in fundamental Christianity at this point, and then another foot in sort of agnosticism. You know, moving along, that whole situation with my roommates blew up just because of the kind of person that I was. I was in this relationship with this girl and it just wasn't good, and that relationship blew up, and you know, my relationship with my roommates blew up. Everything that I was in at the time blew up because I had learned all these coping mechanisms that were not working, that were negative, that I used when I was younger, and I almost was essentially a narcissist. I would lie. I wouldn't really lie. I would, you know, sometimes I would outright lie every now and again. That was rare though. I would mostly just tell half-truths. So that relationship with my girlfriend blew up, which was a really good thing because I learned a lot from her, and later on I learned that it wasn't her that was the problem. It was me. I had thought that she was in a lower state of consciousness than me, but really she was in a higher state of consciousness than I was. And I did not have the eyes to see that at the time. But I ended up patching things up with my roommates, and you know, I would go visit them from time to time. And one time I visited them, they said that they had some fungi, some shiitake, and they were like, do you want to partake? And I was like, sure. Just very, very small little bits, not really enough to get you over the edge. And so I just remember doing that, and I was sitting in this chair and I was just like sort of turned inward, thinking about things, and I couldn't stop thinking about my mom. And it was the weirdest thing because I looked to the left and my roommate had this poem on their stand, and it's called Footprints in the Sand. It was basically alluding to the fact that if Jesus was with you all along, you know, you just didn't know it. If you ever have a chance, go Google that poem, read it. This is what it is. But that poem was the same exact poem that was on my mother's funeral program. And so I was like, what is going on here? And so I was in a state of deep contemplation, and I knew I had to head out. And so I left and I went over to my friend's house and some other group of friends that were there. And they were my main group of friends. And I was starting to build a good relationship with them. I went to high school with them, and I wasn't really mature enough to hang out with them because of, like I said, I was a narcissist. I would lie a lot. I was not mentally mature, but they had a good upbringing and stuff like this. My best friend in high school was someone that had sort of been through somewhat of a similar scenario than I was. So we were together a lot and hung out and kind of leaned on each other. But I was hanging out with them, and I went over there, and they made things easier for me that night. I ended up actually moving in with one of the people in these friend groups. We'll call him Cam. In this friend group, we'll call him Cam. You know, after a period of time, I moved in with him, and it was a great time. My friends would always come over there. We would hang out, and we would, you know, just get stupid and do silly things and play music and just have a good time. This one day I was off. I worked the same job as Cam, but I was off, and I was hanging out with my other friend. We'll call him Andy. And I was hanging out with Andy all day. And near the end of the day, we were like, well, we're hungry. Let's go to the restaurant that Cam works at, which is the restaurant that I worked at. Let's pick up a to-go order. Most delicious food you'll ever eat in your life. So we picked up a to-go order. It was a steak, very delicious. We went back and had it. And while we were there, though, Cam was like, I'm going to be getting off early. So I'll be back in a little bit. And we were like, all right, bud, cool. We'll see you in a little bit. So we went back, we ate, and he ended up coming back there. And it was not even dark yet. This was October 24th of 2013. I remember this date because this was the day that my life changed forever. So when Cam got back, he was like, hey guys, so such and such a person has a farm where they are growing delicious fungi and shiitake. And we were like, okay, cool, that sounds like a good time. And not really fully understanding, because like I said before, I had only, eaten small amounts. I had thought that, to do more would be an escape, right? Sort of like smoking. It makes things more exciting, it makes playing video games more interesting, it makes the movies more interesting, it makes food taste better. I thought it would be somewhere along the lines of that, but boy, was I wrong. So Cam and Andy go and procure said fungi and shiitake. And so we went ahead and had that. And I don't know why, but I was feeling a bit nervous at the time. And, I was thinking, oh, this is going to be a good time, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being a bit nervous. As things start to set in, I was trying to do things. I was trying to play music, trying to play guitar, play this. I was trying to play video games, trying to watch a movie. We tried all this stuff, right? And my brain would not latch onto it. Every single physical object and thing that was going on outside of me, it lost all meaning. I was unable to attach meaning to things. And so nothing interested me. The only thing that interested me was inside of me. And so after so long of trying to do activities, I just had to sit there. I was just sitting there, and I didn't want to be doing that. I tried to do other activities because every time I sat there, I could see what was really inside of myself, and I didn't like that. But it came to a point where I physically could not do anything else but just sit there. Sat in this chair. I remember this. I'll always remember this. I sat in this chair, and I had a moment. I had this moment where I realized of all the characters in every movie, of every story that I've ever been told, of every book that I've ever been written, of every parable that has ever been said, I am the character that nobody wants to be. I was the villain who thought that his causes were just. And so I actually said that aloud. I said that aloud to Cam and Andy, and they knew me. They knew me well because, like I said, we'd been in school together for a long time. And they didn't say much. They sort of gave an inner nod like, yeah, you're sort of on the right path. And in a sense, that was reassuring to me because I was like, well, at least I'm getting this right. I don't know where it's going to lead, but at least I'm getting it right here. And so I was ashamed of that. And so I kind of went to hide myself. I went to lay down, right? Because I just like sitting, even holding my, torso up was an ordeal. So I laid down on the floor, and there was a blanket there, and I covered myself up with the blanket, and I was in complete darkness. And when I went under the blankets, I was more inside of myself than I was before. I could see inside of myself, and the insight that I had there and what I could see was that everything that I demonized outside of myself, all the negativity, that person's bad, this person's this, that person's that, all the way down to that person has demons. There's demons here, demons exist. I had to realize that inside of myself. And I saw that it all came from within me, right? Not that I made it up, right? But that it did exist, but it existed within me. And so upon realizing that, I came out of the blanket and I turned to Cam and I was like, we need to go and have a conversation. Because Cam was sitting there having an extremely deep sort of experience, and he, was saying, like, guys, just quiet your mind. Like, I'm getting this urge, like, we need to, like, quiet our minds and stuff like that and so forth. I won't go too much into that. But then Andy was like, can I come outside and smoke a cigarette with you guys? So we went out. And then when we were out there, we were out there, I was like, I just, like, I feel this urge to, like, I do something, like, I need to fix, like, I need to do something. I just feel like, I can't, I just feel like shit, And then, like, I said that in so many words, but, like, I don't even remember exactly what was said. Although, the important part here is that when we were out there, Cam was sitting down, and he said, it's like God is just love. Is all that it is. And all that is waiting is for us to just step out and accept the love and fall into it. I won't put too many more words into it than that, but after he said that, I just looked at him and said, I totally accept that love. And after I said, I totally accept that love, boom, there was something like a veil that had just shot up. And I have fully entered into life for the first time ever. And I just remember feeling so amazing and so present. And I was like, wow, all the old coping mechanisms that I had, gone. Everything that was trying to keep me, it's just this thin layer. It's this box that you're in, right? It was broken. And it's extraordinarily hard to explain with words, but I had fully entered into life for the first time ever. And later on, I remember thinking, that's what it is to be saved. That's what salvation is. That's what the kingdom of heaven is accepting love, and giving it as well, right? When you accept love for yourself, then you have it to give. But if you can't accept love, then you have none of it to give, right? So I just remember the walls melting down, and it was the most exhilarating experience, because here's two ways that you can really go when you have a journey like this. You can either wait for the storm to pass and say, that was just crazy thoughts that I had when I was, having some fungi, right? Or you can really look at yourself, do the work, face the demons. Face the demons. And if you can do that, and if you can accept love and light, shine the light on the darkness. There cannot be no darkness inside of you anymore. And that's exactly what happened. I'd forgiven myself. I was looking past everything. I was entering into life, and I was seeing myself just as I was now. And I was seeing everything as it was in the now. And when you look and see things in the now, there's nothing to demonize. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with you right now. There's nothing wrong with me right now. And this is how God sees us, So anyways, go back inside. And I just remember we turned on some music and I laid on the floor. And I remember looking up at the ceiling, and it was like these chains just were breaking. And like I was just getting downloads. Like I had opened my whole entire self back up to be present and available to life. It's like this, right? It's like I was this computer that was isolated and hadn't been updated in years, right? But I updated myself and plugged myself, back into the, internet, and all this information was flooding in. All the available information that there is was flooding in, and I was having insights, and things that didn't make sense made sense to me. And I was putting the puzzle pieces together. It was a lot. And so after a while, I was like, this is amazing, but I need to go to sleep. I need to get some rest. But I couldn't go to sleep, because if you've ever had shiitake fungi, then you will know that it's extremely difficult to turn your consciousness off or go to sleep. And so what I did was I just closed my eyes. When I closed my eyes, I rested. And I was trying to rest, and these negative thoughts would come into my head. And as soon as a negative thought came into my head, I would say, nope, and it would leave. And I would be like, wow, I thought that I had to think my thoughts. I thought I had to follow those. I thought that in a sense they were me. But I realized they're not. I can dismiss them, and I can choose other thoughts, or I can, choose to just let them go, right? In a meditation, this is kind of what that's about. So I continued that process. And as I continued that process, I would say nope out loud. At this point, I would say nope, and the thoughts would go. Nope, the thoughts would go. And the more I did that, the deeper into rest, and this state of meditation is really the only thing that I could call it. Deeper and deeper and deeper, until it was like, have you ever been in a pool and like you sink yourself all the way to the bottom, and you lay down on the bottom, and then you look up and you see the surface there? That was kind of what it was like. But the bottom was an ocean, and I had sunk myself all the way to the bottom, and I was looking up at all of the things that just didn't matter. You know, I was in a very, very, very deep state of meditation, and like I was still conscious though. It was like my brainwave state was deep sleep, but I was still aware. I was still conscious. I could choose to come out of it if I wanted to. So interesting, and I'll never forget that night. And that was the night I learned what true meditation and contemplation is for. Because when I came out of that, I had felt more refreshed than I ever had. I knew it was time to come out of that when I saw the light hit my eyes. So I had been in this state of deep meditation for about 4 to 6 hours. And as soon as the light hit my eyes, I knew it's a new day, it's time to get up. And so I opened my eyes, and the sun is shining through the window, and I just recognize and realize this is the first day of the rest of my life. And so I come out more refreshed than I had ever felt, even though I technically didn't really sleep. But I woke up feeling more refreshed than I ever had. And when I woke up, I had to do all the regular things that I had to do. I had to go to work, I had to take the trash out, I had to do all this stuff. But the whole time, it was all beautiful. It was all amazing. I was very present. It was like I had gotten this new ability I didn't know that I could have. You know, I had realized that I was not my thoughts. I didn't have to be bothered by them. I could just be present. I could be in the activity that I was in, and that was it. I was loving everything. I was loving taking the trash out. I was loving people that, you know, I had not had super strong feelings for before, and so forth. I had worked that night, and everyone was, you know, divine, and everyone was beautiful, and everyone was lovely, and I just had so much love to share with everybody. And that's how things continued. This is where the deconstruction really started to happen, though. The deconstruction happened after this because I realized that I was born again. Like I told you, when I opened my eyes that morning, that was the first day of the rest of my life. And I realized that I had tricked myself into thinking that I was saved by saying words. But that's not really what it meant. What it meant was you have to change the entire way that you think about things, right? Repent, for the kingdom of heaven is literally available for you to step into right now, is what that means, right? You have to change your mind. Stop hating. Accept love, right? And prayer is a big part of that. For me, meditation is a big part of that. But the most important thing was to accept the love, right? That way you can give it, right? And I was like, how was my conversion experience? I didn't say, Jesus, you're my Lord and Savior. I accept you into my heart. When I had entered into life more than I ever had been before, the words that I said and the place that my heart was in was, I finally accept love for myself, because I never fully had, because of everything that I had been through before. My mom, I didn't know if she wanted me. Is there something wrong with me? Other people have to raise me. There were difficulties and complications with my aunt and uncle at points in time. And when I was born, and my father, you know, was I the cause of this, and just all this stuff, I didn't really think that I had deserved love. But upon accepting it, I realized that was what I was waiting for. I wasn't waiting to be successful. I wasn't waiting for Jesus to come back. I wasn't waiting for anything but to just be able to receive love and accept love for myself, and to give it, to be able to give that back out, right? Because you can't give what you don't have, like I said earlier. After this, I read the Bible like a lot, like every day. And I was reinterpreting everything, and it made sense in this new way to me. Everything that Jesus talked about, loving your neighbor, loving your enemy, you know, even if they don't love you, you know, it's not for them, it's for you. It's also for them too. But if you can't be in a state of love, you cannot be in the kingdom of heaven, in essence, right? But then this opened up to me the idea that this is not the only tradition that teaches to love. This is not the only tradition that teaches to, get in touch with the divine, you go into deep states of meditation. And this is where I was turned toward Eastern religion, Buddhism, Taoism, Hinduism, and the like. So I studied a lot of that. And I realized that their methods of prayer and contemplation are a bit more effective and deeper than the evangelical background that I had come from. In evangelical Christianity, praying is just talking a lot to God. But what we don't realize, what evangelical fundamental Christians don't realize, is that you're not giving God a chance to speak. You're not giving God a chance to come through when you're constantly, incessantly verbalizing in your mind. In the stillness is where He is where it is where God is, right? So these methods of prayer and meditation that were just being silent really started to become, in my mind, the highest forms of prayer. And now one of the things that I say a lot is that meditation really is the highest form of prayer, because you're just sitting with God. If you can get to that place, you can just sit with God, right? If you ever reached a point in your relationship where you don't need to talk to the person, just to sit in their presence is bonding time, That's what God wants from us. He just wants for us to just be connected with Him, to be with Him, to be there. He doesn't need you to tell Him anything, to ask Him anything. He knows. God knows, it knows, she knows everything. It's just the time and the love that it wants. Through a period of about 2 years, I was able to, fully just deconstruct. Not even 2 years, probably about a year. It's been 12 years since October 24th, 2013, and I'm still learning a lot. And it wasn't but a year later that I had found the Course in Miracles. And the Course in Miracles is wow. It's basically a very advanced spiritual system that will help you to deprogram your ego and realize that you are not this body, you're not your thoughts, you are the thing that can sit on the bottom of the ocean and look out on everything. That is who you truly are. And that will go on forever and ever and ever and ever. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked, like and subscribe if you want to continue on the journey with me. I'll be here doing the thing. And I've been starting to do A Course in Miracles on Sunday. So come to, I'll be doing live streams on Sunday. So if you want to get into that with me, I would love to see you there. But this is the story. This is what I've got for now. Let me know if you want to do a part 2. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. And I'll see you soon.